Hey folks, Paul Abernathy here. On today's episode, we're going to talk about being the best electrician does not always make the best electrical contractor. And it's kind of time for us to have that one-on-one talk. If you're out there and you're an electrician and your sole focus is to, I'm the best electrician in the world, but if you're working for an electrical contractor, or if you're an electrician, you're working as your own contractor, it's kind of time to start understanding that it's not about how good you are, okay? I can tell you over the years, and I'm a previous VICA winner. I've competed, and that's kind of what got my career started back in the 80s, and went on to do some great things. But it didn't take me long to realize it wasn't about being the best electrician. Yes, all of my cables, you could lay a level on them, all of my conductors. There is this element of pride that you have to take in. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to mix that pride and that workmanship and that sense of really wanting to do the right thing even when people aren't looking, and they'll translate that into your business, whether you are the electrical contractor or you work for an electrical contractor. Look, at the end of the day, you may say, look, I'm just an electrician. I am just here to do the work. The boss is the one that makes all the money, or the boss or the owner is the one that reaps the benefits. And that's not true, because you're getting a paycheck. And there's a high probability you're getting paid very well to do what you do. So at the end of the day, the success of the company is what's going to push you along as an electrician. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today, is being the best electrician does not always make you the best electrical contractor. It really doesn't. So that's kind of what we're going to dig into in this episode and really kind of break it down. Okay. All right. So there's a lot of stuff we're going to unpack today. Okay. So, I've got my notes so that we can make sure this, and some of this is going to be a hard truth for many of you out there. Okay. So again, take it what it is. And again, this is something that the CMECP program, and when you're dedicated to making sure that you complete something on a task, it kind of helps you understand these things, not only to become better electricians, but it also helps to become better leaders. And that is about your time management and things like that. So let's kind of get into it. So number one, the hard truth most electricians avoid. One, the market does not reward technical perfection. Okay? It rewards professional presentation and trust. So if I am an electrician, I go out to do a job, and I might do the neatest job in the world. The customer is going to praise the company. They will maybe say good things about the technician, but at the end of the day, they're going to praise the company. And that's what they should do. Because if I'm going out there to do a task, I want to make sure that the company I work for is shined in the best light possible so that they'll call us back. I think that with many people, and I hear a lot of people say this, is that they're almost bitter in a sense that they think they deserve more, they think they should get paid more, and maybe they do. But at the end of the day, you've accepted the job, you're doing the job, so you need to remember who you actually work for. And we want to make sure that every time we leave this project, that they talk about how good the company is, not necessarily how great the technician was, okay? Now, you have to remember that customers cannot see your code knowledge. You're there for a brief moment in time. You may solve their problem, very quickly, and they like that because they're going to pay less, right? Less time you're there. But at the end of the day, they can't see these things. And you're not there to simply pat yourself on the back and let the customer know how great you are. So social media, going on videos and doing stuff, again, for us to boost our egos, that's great. Everybody wants to be a teacher, and that's great because we all have an element of what we can teach. At the end of the day, if you're an electrician and you're out there doing the work, the customer can't see that code knowledge. They're relying on the fact that the company that hired you because you're proficient at what you do and that you do a good job, and that they assume you know these type of things. But one thing they can see is they cannot see the code knowledge, but they can see your truck. They can see the company's website. They can see the paperwork and how well it's done, your penmanship, and not sloppy. They can see the logo. They can see the attitude that you project from the moment you arrive to the job site. And they also see the follow through. how you finish this up, okay? How you get there, present what you're about to do, how you make it very clear what you're going to cover, and then what happens when you finish it up and you leave and how you follow up with it. That's the stuff they see. That's what reflects on the company. You have to remember, and we have to understand, they really don't care about you. They don't. And so, at the end of the day, you as an electrician should already have an innate responsibility in yourself to be the best electrician you can be. Don't look for that gratitude from other people. Now, I am a firm believer within a company. The company should reward and let you know. And some people say, I don't need somebody to tell me I'm doing a good job. I find that is not 100% accurate. Everybody likes to be told they're doing a good job. And if you're the owner, I'm talking to you, let your people know, reward them, take them out to eat. Again, don't think about nothing but the bottom line and the money and the return on investment without spreading it around. That doesn't mean you have to give thousands of dollars to your employees, but you need to let them know that their worth means something, okay? Now, it's incumbent on you to teach your staff, if you're the owner, how to carry themselves. They need to develop soft skills. Now, you may hire somebody and think that the only reason I hired them is because I want them to be a really good technician. They do a lot of good work for me. I don't get many callbacks. But at the end of the day, that's kind of a death sentence to any company, because you need to put an effort into training your staff so they have those soft skills. They can deal with customers. They know how to handle resolution. They know how to pause, know how to breathe, and respond with technically accurate information, but also factual, not blowing smoke up their ass type of responses. That all can be trained. Okay? It's not like you're born with it. You can be trained with it. Now, being the best electrician in the world means nothing if the business you work for or the business itself is disorganized, sloppy, and unreliable. So sometimes we have to do this kind of raise up and do a 1,000-foot view of our company. So if you're the owner, you need to look at your company. Do your guys wear shirts? Do they wear nice jeans or khakis? Are you giving them the tools to make you look the best you can? Because the more you focus on the fact that it's not about how proficient they are, that's good for you and the company. And, you have hierarchies there. But ultimately, as an owner, who's your boss? Your boss is the customer. And when that employee gets there, the truck they come in, the vehicle they're there, the website that got them there, the return on investment from all that work that you put in with the logo and the attitude, okay? You've probably heard me say this before on podcasts, this attitude is huge. Because if you go there with a chip on your shoulder, that's how it's going to be conveyed. And while it's important to make a good first impression, you've heard me talk about that bad first impressions can be overcome. It just takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of extra time to do that. And if you train them to start out properly, or if you're the electrician, think about the company you work for. They're giving you a job. And many times we look at an hourly rate or a salary and we do not realize what else is baked into that. The benefit package maybe, or the time off, or the security that the job gives. I tell you, it's a hand-in-hand deal. Everybody should be taking care of themselves, but you as the owners, take care of your employees. The employees, you should be taking care of your owner, okay? Now, skill alone does not scale a business. Systems scale a business, okay? So if you run a mom and pop shop and you're not interested in growing, then that's on you. But if you wonder why when times get tight during off seasons or down times, it's because you haven't built a system, a procedural method of looking the part, carrying the part, setting the image, following up on every call that you've made. So there's a follow-up. So these customers think, wow, these people went out of the way to make me happy. Now, not everybody's going to be happy, but you have to make the effort, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about electrician versus electrical contractor a little bit. So best electricians think about perfect raceway runs, being very code accurate, technical pride in what you do, the workmanship, personal reputation amongst your peers. That is very much what I think about when I think about being an electrician. I want to do the right thing. I want it to look good all the time. Now, if I'm an employee and I have this mentality is that I'm working for somebody, but I go to a job site, and this may offend some of you, and you may stop watching the video, and that's okay, because I offend people all the time. If you say, look, I can't see it from my house, then it tells me that you're not really worth a damn. You may be a very efficient technician. You may make the company tons of money, but at the end of the day, you're the person that I'm getting rid of. When I'm working, whether I'm working from 7 to 4 or 8 to 5 or whatever my schedule is, I'm giving 100% to the company. That's it. Okay. And if you're a person that says, I can't see it from my house, then I'm speaking to the owners. You need to get rid of them. That's not going to help you. That is nobody that's going to help further your business. Okay. So again, some people say, Paul, lighten up. Well, you're just the person I'm talking to. Okay. And you may think you're good, but you're not. You're really not in the scheme of what that electrical contractor needs. You may be good in skill. You may be a good electrician. Know your stuff, can troubleshoot well, but you're not the package that I would want because I can replace you. And everybody's replaceable. Okay. They may not be as quick. Okay. They may not be as neat, but they can get the job done. But if they help push the mission, remember, the end customer doesn't know what's neat. They assume that you're going to always give them the neatest that you can. Okay, so you're replaceable. Don't ever forget that. Everybody's replaceable. Now, what does the best electrical contractor think about? They think about the ultimate customer experience. They always think about the company brand, the professional image that their employees are carrying out, because that's what they expect. The systems and the processes, okay, change orders, all those type of things. How can it be done so that it is streamlined across the entire team? And then they look at the overall team performance. If I've got one technician that is just killing it and I got others that are not, then maybe I want to understand why this one electrician in my team is killing it and the others are not. Maybe it takes an evaluation. I have to determine why one is killing it and one is not. And there's some simple processes that can identify that out, okay? Also, as a contractor, how it differs from an electrician is that I am looking for consistent results constantly, time after time, not excuses. I'm looking for when an electrician makes a mistake, they own up to it. I want that electrician that's not going to bury their problems hoping it never rears its head down the road. That is not what I want, okay? And I also don't want to instill the fear in the electrician that they're afraid to come forward with something because it's going to cause them problems. That's a bad way to be as well, okay? So the electrician builds the work. The contractor is who builds the business. Now, many of you might be in this situation where you're wearing all those hats. You're the contractor, you're the business owner, and you're the electrician. Well, nobody knows more keenly than you, because I get calls all the time with contractors, one-man, two-man shops going, how do I grow my business? And I'll talk to them, and I'll do a consulting session with them, and I'll ask them some real tough questions. I'll say, okay, well, how do you treat customers? Well, I think I treat them great. Do you? Well, let's talk about it. And I'll throw some scenarios out there, and, inevitably somebody will say, well, the customer's not always right. They're probably not always right. But there are tactful ways to handle situations where they're not always right. And then I have people that say, well, I'm not kissing any customer's ass. Okay, that's fine. I didn't say kiss their ass. What I said is understand how to compromise and come to a mutual agreement that satisfies everybody. And you walk away with a win-win, and you walk away with a potential customer that may refer somebody else. You heard me say this. Word of mouth is extremely important. But people, if they have a bad experience, they immediately rush to Yelp, or they immediately rush to Google and do a bad review. Why? Because they had a bad experience. Now, when somebody has a really good experience, some of those people will rush and give you a really good. And we talked about this in other episodes and other podcasts that I've done, where it's extremely important to make sure that you prompt that customer And you train your staff to prompt that customer to give a review while you're there. That's why I have these little tags. You see them? If you're watching the video, you'll see this little QR code that's on my hat. Well, we sell these little things. You can make them yourself. Basically, we put the customer right there and go to this QR code where they can give a review. And that review is what's going to drive the confidence in other customers when they see these reviews. And if you're a local business and you're trying to grow your business, that is fundamentally important for you to understand that. If you don't understand that yet you're trying to scale your business and grow your business, then you're fundamentally missing something. You really are. Now, let's talk about a customer's thought process. What are they actually buying? Okay. Remember, the customer's not buying your conduit bins. They're not buying the neat routing of your conductors. Okay. They're not buying, you like your cables to be all level. And again, that's innately something I like to do. I like to make my work look good, even though it's going to be hid behind sheetrock. That's a pride thing. And I would hope that vast majority of electricians have that pride. Sadly, younger ones today, all they're worried about is speed. And if that is what's promoted as speed alone, then something has to suffer. Okay? And usually in the skill, it's the workmanship suffers when we start thinking about nothing but speed. So there has to be a happy balance. But look, if you're the electrician, you're going to have to learn that. Okay? But let's think about it. What is the customer actually buying? They're buying confidence that when you show up or you as a company send out that technician, confidence, reliability, the ability to communicate effectively what you're going to do, what you're going to fix, and the outcome. They're paying for professionalism. They do not want the headache. Hell, if they wanted this, they try to be a DIYer. They try to go to Lowe's or Home Depot and do it themselves. Why are they calling you? Not because you run the neatest wire in the world. That's the electrician's responsibility. They're calling the electrical contractor because they want confidence, reliability, communication, effectively communicating the issue. They want professionalism. They want that level of trust, and they want finality. They want you to solve their issue. They're going to go on with their life. I can tell you right now, I have been on calls back in the day when I worked in the field, and that people, electricians, seem to want to tell, and I've heard this with other trades, they seem to want to tell the homeowner how good they are, that they're the best. There's ways to do that without having to say it. Now, you've heard me say there's nothing wrong with tooting your own horn. That's if you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to get followers, that's fine, okay? But when it comes to the customer that you're going out there to do the work for them and you're putting on your company face, then there's things that you have to do ahead of time that conveys all those professionalism, trust, communication. And that is like become a CMECP. It conveys that. The patches, the looking good, okay? The nice looking vehicles with the signage on it or the magnet mounts or whatever. That sends that response. That sends the message to the customer. They don't give a rat's ass about you personally. They really don't. They may listen to you, but the moment you're gone, guess what? They got their own life to deal with. They could care less that you run the best looking conduit in the world. They could care less that all of your cables, you could put a level on them. That's something that me as an electrician, I do because I take an immense amount of pride in what I do. And if you're an electrician that doesn't, well, that's on you. But again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But there is this level of expectation from the customers. They judge your company well before they judge your workmanship. Trust me. If you're late, they don't care how neat a work you do because they don't know what neat is. All they do is immediately they're judging you. If you get to a job site and all you do is cuss and look sloppy or smoke on the job site or your vehicle looks terrible, it doesn't matter. You may be the most code savvy, neatest electrician in the world. Trust me, they don't care. All they know is ABC Electric sucks. That's the image they have. And as an owner of a company, you cannot let that be propagated. And if your employees cannot get on the board or you don't provide the tools they need to set that image, then you're never going to grow. And you might say, well, my business is doing fine. Trust me, everybody always wants more. Okay. And, maybe you're happy with the way you do it. That's on you. I'm just trying to tell you that it's just kind of like codes, right? If I say something about the electrical code, there's always somebody out there that says, not in my jurisdiction. Well, I don't care about your jurisdiction. I don't even care about your state specifically. I teach the National Electrical Code. So it's national. It's what the code book says. Now, somebody may amend it or modify it or supplement it or whatever as a state. That's on you to understand. I'm not here because I am not going to teach 50 states. I teach one national electrical code. So when I hear people post comments, for example, that say, well, not in my state, well, good on you. That's your state. I don't care about your state. I teach the national electrical code. It's your responsibility to learn what changes are modified. That's why you do continuing ed, because continuing ed will talk about what changes may have taken place specifically in your state. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you have to set the message, the mindset for the company. Now, something to remember, your company is always speaking, okay? If your company image is speaking through the look of your vehicle, your truck, your van, your company's speaking by the website and online presence that you have. Look, if you have nothing but a Google listing, but it just looks very weak, it's not followed through with images, chances are, the way people are today, you're not going to get the call anyway. You're just not. So your website, everybody should have a website, whether it's a simple one-page, simple frontal page with the phone number and brief information about your company. I believe that you should have something that you can share with everybody. If you don't, you're just falling behind, okay? You need to have an online presence. But all of those things are the image that speaks to the company. So it's got to look good. And with today's templates and things that we have available, it should not be hard to have a professional looking website or online presence. Also, in your company, how the phone is actually answered can go a long way. How your emails are written. I'll tell you right now that a lot of the people have jumped on our Trade Hog because Trade Hog allows you to, when you write something to a customer, in Trade Hog, for example, you can throw it in Trade Hog in the Office Hog and ask it to rewrite this professionally and keep the customer satisfaction in mind and post what you wrote, and it will correct it. It will fix the grammar. It will make it sound professional. Goes a long way. Use AI to your benefit because sometimes the things that people write can kill a deal. That's why a lot of people do get our Trade Hog product because it is tailored to the contractor. It's going to say things based on contractor slang. It's going to keep it very much around that type of tradesman industry type of responses, right? But email is important. Consistency, headers, footers, signature titles, things like that. Extremely important. How your invoices are delivered. How quickly they're delivered. All of these things set an image. Look, if you're a one-man show and you want to be a good old boy type of system, that's fine. Maybe these things don't matter as much to you. But it doesn't take much for somebody to say, look, I need to make sure that I give my electricians and our company all the tools necessary to be successful. And that means these simple tools. Emails with proper formatting, the process on how you answer the phone, the follow-ups after appointments, letting customers know before you get to the appointment that you're on the way. All these things are simple that can be done, right? Also, how you handle problems, understanding how to do problem resolution. In fact, in our thermal imaging program, our certified thermal imaging, we have an entire module that talks about the Zig Ziglar approach to sales and how to deal with objection and how to do that, because I think it's extremely important that you learn patience. I can tell you right now, I am 57, 58 years old, 57, I guess. And look, I learned early on, I was so hard to deal with when I was a young electrician. I knew it all. I in the field, I did have an advanced knowledge of most people, and I knew it. And at the end of the day, I also didn't know how to handle certain things with my son, and I would get upset quickly, and he would escalate and get upset quickly, and it would just result in arguing. And I had to learn through life to chill. I had to learn to just relax and breathe before I said anything. Take a moment. That's why we teach these techniques, how to kind of wind down a situation. I've got podcast episodes on this, how to take a breath and how to de-escalate a situation, look for a win-win opportunity, all those type of things. It does take practice. It doesn't happen immediately, right? How to handle problems is huge. How to overcome hurdles in the field is huge, okay? How to not bullshit the client and be very honest with the client, okay? Those type of things. It's a learned process. It's not natural, okay? If you think that people are natural born salesmen, that's not true. What it is the more you get familiar with a product, more you get familiar with a process, the easier it is to have it just flow off your tongue and it comes across as a natural born salesman. I tell people all the time, the better you know something about something specific, the better you are to convey it. That's when people start out in public speaking, they suck. The better they get, the further on, stand-up comics, they bomb. The better they get, they learn their delivery, they get better. Same thing with sales, same thing with electricians, same thing with having conflict in the field. It gets better. And as an employer, you want to give those tools to your customer, okay? Again, one of the other things that speaks to the company image is always going to be how your employees behave on the job site. Because you know what? They speak for you, right? It's one of those things that, you know what? I have always made it a habit. For example, most people know that I travel for Encore Wire for years as their technical expert. We go to meetings. Typically it wasn't the thing to wear company shirts into the bar after the meeting and drink because I didn't want anybody to see the name of the company. I was on my time, right? So it might have been inconvenient, but changing your shirt, okay, your company policies can be whatever, but when you're on the road, I always had to think about the image. I did not want to be in an elevator with a woman by myself. So if I was ever in an elevator, and again, I tried my best to do this, that I would, if a woman walks in, I would stop and I would leave the elevator and take another elevator. I know you're saying, oh, come on. We get talked to all the time from lawyers and we learn certain things. And again, I know what to say and what not to say and what to do, especially when I'm on the job and being very tactful. And that is stuff that you have to understand as an electrician. There's certain things that you come to do your job you don't need to say, you don't need to do, because at the end of the day, you're an employee and how you behave affects the company. Okay, so you may be the best electrician in town. Hell, you may be the best electrician in the state, but your company might be the worst impression in the room. And they're not going to see how good you are. What they're going to see is the company. That's a problem, okay? Now, why great electricians fail as contractors. So there's tons of contractors out there or were contractors who are electricians and they come to the realization that they can't make it as a contractor, right? I think the biggest problem, in my opinions, is that they overvalue technical excellence and undervalue business discipline. They don't understand how to run a business. They believe that just because they're so good that the customer ought to overlook all their deficiencies because, dude, you're getting the best electrician in the area. So don't worry that I look sloppy or don't worry that I cuss or don't worry. It doesn't work like that. And it's not going to take long. You may have a spike where people share you up front and they'll tell people, well, he's a little brass, but he's a great electrician. It's not going to be good for long term. Trust me. So there's many electricians who tried to be contractors and failed at it, right? Also, they operate as craftsmen instead of executives. There is this mind shift. And I give it a good example is the guy that works for me, y'all know Jeff, took my spot at the city of Richmond, Virginia as the top lead plans examiner. I was an engineer, but he was the lead plans examiner when I left. And when I hired him back as an inspector, he was an electrical contractor, been an electrical contractor for years. One of the first, and he would tell you this story. One of the first things I told to him was, when you become an inspector, it's kind of like that movie Over the Top, with Sylvester Stallone and them, is when you become an inspector, you have to take that electrician's hat and turn it around and put on an inspector's hat. It's not about how you were rejected or how you failed things or how inspectors treated you. Your job is to be the inspector now. There's a minimum standard. You do not impose your personal wills on installations. You follow the code minimum. If the customer and the electrician together want to exceed the basic bare minimums of the NEC, that's on them. That is not on you. So I used to tell them, don't impose your own personal wills. It's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is the minimum standard, and that's what the NEC is. If they want to go above the minimum and exceed it, that's their choice. It should never be the inspector's choice, okay? And so when it comes to electrical contractors who go out and fail, they focus so much on the craftsmanship, or they do their work, their impeccable work, but they don't know how to be executives of their own company. And that is where they fail. They don't know how to do taxes, or they don't know how to do their business. They don't know how to treat customers. They don't know how to create a repetitive process or communicate with their customers effectively, or marketing or advertising or promotion. They don't know any of that. They just know that they're good craftsmen. They have set themselves up to fail. And that's sad, because they could have been rising stars, but they ended up teetering out, that type of thing. Now, another thing is they focus on their personal pride instead of the company's reputation, right? So the electrician wants to be known as the best electrician in the world, right? And let's say they go to a job and they can solve it in 10 minutes, where the next electrician may take 30 minutes. They pride themselves in that. I found it where that sucker took 30 minutes. At the end of the day, that guy that took 30 minutes, if he follows all the things to keep their company in the highest regard, they're going to get the business, because you're still charging a minimum of an hour. Doesn't matter how quick you were. But if you do not convey the company image or that company reputation very high, then you know what? The customer doesn't see the wire. They don't see the cable. They don't understand that if it's a little slanted versus flat, that even makes a difference. They really don't know. They really don't. You know, and that's something innate within you. It has nothing to do with the end customer. So typically, those that fail, they focus too much on their personal pride instead of worrying about the reputation or putting the company first. Whether you're a one-man shop or a one-woman shop, or you're working for somebody that's got 1,000 employees, you should be always putting the company first, because they're the one that are paying you. They're the one that keeps you employed and keeps food on your table. They're the ones that gives you the benefits, okay? The leave, the insurance if you get hurt. They're the ones paying that. I'm just saying, things you have to think about, okay? Now, what else do they fail? Well, they try to be the hero instead of building a brand that works without them. So as you go from a one-man to a two-man to a three-man or whatever, a lot of people try to build their value and their worth in a company as me, rather than build the company as a whole so that they are replaceable by another electrician in the company. Now, you know what I said about tooting your own horn and making yourself valuable within the company? That's true. There's nothing wrong with letting people know in the company that you know that you're good and you're worth it. That's fine. But never let that carry over to the customer. No, they don't care. Okay? But what you want to do is let them know that you're there to be a team player with everybody else, but you are that good. Right? But you want to give the impression to the customer that everybody in your company chain is that good. When you figure that out, that's when your company is going to be successful. Really, it is. Okay, now let's talk a little bit different. Let me shift a gear here. Let's talk about what real contractor success looks like. Okay, real success of an electrical contractor means what? If you're the contractor and you've done things right, whether you're a one-man show or a 100-man show, whatever, the customers recommend the company, not an individual. They push the company. That's when you know you're successful. Okay. The business produces consistent income without your constant presence. So at some point, you're able to take time off as a contractor and the business keeps running. Those are little signs that you're being successful. In other words, there's a call about a project and it gets scheduled and it gets done, it gets fixed, and you basically hands off. Now, look, I'm going to tell you, I grew up as being a sole proprietor. Then I went into being a corporation. We started out mom and pop, started out with me and my brother. So vacations were far and in between. We always had to have our hands in every issue. But we slowly built it up that it was bringing in income and problems were getting solved without our constant presence looking over everything. Whether we had helpers or people working for us, whatever, we got to that point, and at that point, we knew it was successful. As a sole, single shop owner, that should be your goal, is so that it's generating you income even when you're not doing it. Now, I know you might not be ready now. You may not even want that. You might say, dude, I'm okay by myself. That still doesn't mean that you don't want more work. That doesn't mean that you want to have people waiting to come to your company. Not you, your company. That's where you should be focused on. Okay. Now, the one thing to remember is that your system that you put in place will outlast your own labor, right? So from the moment you show up, or the moment you do the job, the moment you leave, the system has to be a process, right? That helps grow your reputation, okay? Not just while you're on the job site. So for example, follow-up calls. When you do, maybe it's a service call, or you finish a project. Even though you've been paid, the project's finished out, you should be calling the general contractor as a follow-up. You should be calling the owners and say, we just wanted to call and thank you for allowing us to do that last project. We're here if you need us. If you got any problems with it, we stand behind our work. I don't know that many contractors today that follow up. They seem to think that you only have to follow up with the customer on a service call. No, there is absolutely nothing wrong with following up to the general contractor or the owner or whoever got you the work or saw that you got the work, following up and thanking them for that business. And you're here as a follow-up. That doesn't say anything about your work crew. That says everything about your commitment as a company. And that's what you're trying to do. Show the company is committed, not any one individual or even you. It's the system that you're trying to build. That's extremely important. Now, let's talk about the shift that changes everything. Okay, stop trying to be the best electrician in the world if you want to be a contractor. Start building the best electrical company you can in the world. Build your image, lay out your system, process for change orders, process for invoicing, process for follow-up calls, all those type of things, okay? Build your team. Build your process. I can tell you, back in the day when I was a one-man show, my team was my wife. So I'm busy doing the work. She would take the calls. And it wasn't that she was technically savvy. She wasn't trying to solve calls on the phone. She was trying to schedule them and line them out so that I could effectively return those calls. So she would say, okay, this is electrical service specialist. My name's Darlene. How can I help you? And they would ask and they'd say, okay, let me set up a time for one of our estimators or service technicians or whatever to get out and reach out to you. What's your name? What's your number? I'll have them get right back to you. They're more than happy to speak to you. That's great because that sets the expectation for the customer. Now, you have to make sure you have a system that follows up. Simple, right? Sounds simple, but you don't have to have people that are technical experts or the best electrician in the world that answers the phone. You don't. And so you need to build a team, whether it's you and your partner, whether it's you and your wife. Maybe you're answering all the calls. Okay, well, then you're going to have to wear multiple hats. And you're going to have to try to do the best you can at every hat. But remember, whatever hat you're wearing that day needs to convey one solid message, and that's to the customer. It's all about the company, not about the individual, okay? Build that brand around the company. Don't focus on yourself. Don't focus on you being the best electrician in the world, because you may be, but it's all about the company. And if you're the electrician working for somebody, you would want the same thing for your business. You'd want the same employees. So again, let's stop hearing this stuff about, well, it's good enough, I can't see it from my house. Take pride in what you do, okay? It's a profession. We're all electricians. Now, there'll be some out there on social media that'll say it's corny, that this is BS and all that. They usually are nobodies. They usually have nothing, and they're the first ones to post a comment because they won't look in a mirror and realize that they're 30, 40, 50 years old and they got nothing. You're not that person. They are. The first person that rushes to the keyboard, it's usually a nobody. They've got nothing. They get very defensive because it's the truth. And the truth hurts sometimes. I'm just saying. So, the market doesn't reward who knows the most, folks. The market rewards the most professional, acts the most organized, and delivers the most confidence in the eyes of for the company. That's it. Success is not about being the best electrician in the world. It's about building the best electrical contracting company in the world. That's why I tell people all the time, you become a CMECP, you portray that on your vehicles. It will do the message. It will send all that confidence. It's all about how you market it. It's all about how you use it. It's all about how you display it with the patches on your uniform, the hats. It's all about how you carry yourself. It's the business cards. It's the professional communication. It's the professional invoices. It's the professional follow-ups, all of that. I don't care if you're a one-man show, your goal should be the executive of your company and be the best you can be. You know what? And if you're an electrician and you work for somebody and you say, screw all that, I'm happy with being just doing none of that. Okay, well, you're still getting paid. You work for somebody, take a little pride in your work. You can try to be the best electrician you can be, but ultimately, you need to shine, shine, shine for the company you work for. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, a good employer will reap the benefits, and hopefully they shower down on you folks as well. All right? All right, folks, hopefully you got something out of that today, and you've been listening to whether you're listening to the podcast or you're watching the video. We appreciate you. Until next time, stay safe. God bless. And we'll catch you on another episode of Master the NEC. Peace out.